All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Friday. Sorry about the delay getting started. We were just talking about Marie Antoinette and other people who have had their heads cut off as as political punishment. Um, Interesting stuff, right? Um, so, yes. Right. So let's say hello to Uh, let's say hello to Arya, who is here. And I think Aryan is here as well somewhere. There he is. And Kayla is here. Good morning. And Shota is here. Good morning to you. Let's jump in here, okay? So, yesterday we were talking about Greece, and of course we said that ancient Greece was kind of a big place and a little bit different from the country of modern Greece, right? There's lots of Greek colonies all the way around um, all the way around the Aegean Sea that are Greek settlements, right? We said that Greece itself was kind of interesting because it wasn't a river valley kind of scenario or civilization, right? So lots Mesopotamia, Indus River, Egypt, all of those are river valley civilizations, but Greece is kind of different, right? Very rocky, very mountainous, not the best place for agriculture. And so the fact that it kind of becomes an important civilization alongside of Rome and Egypt and things like that is actually pretty strange for that reason. It's just not the same kind of civilization as we've seen in other places. We said that in terms of resources, they did do some farming, right? So they had some wheat and some barley, also grew fruits and vegetables, lots and lots of olives, right? Greece is kind of known for olives and olive oil, and so there was lots of that being grown and being made in ancient Greece. Athens actually became very rich in the ancient world from selling their olive oil throughout the Mediterranean. Everybody really liked it. There was some precious metals and wood that Greece had, but also lots and lots of clay, right? Lots of clay to make ceramics, and make ceramics they did. The Greeks, of course, made them to hold things, right? Most notably olive oil. But the people making these pots put a lot of work and artistry into them. And so, interestingly, we have a lot of these pots that are, they were probably just used to hold olive oil, right, or to hold preserved foods, and this was just the thing that they came in. But of course, the people who made them were very artistic, and they decorated them with usually mythological scenes, and they're quite beautiful, right? And again, this is not easy to do. It's a lot of artistry, it's a lot of careful painting, and it's firing these ceramics properly to get the colors to really pop and develop the way they do. So making these things is not easy, although in the Greek world there was really no respect given for this kind of thing. People who made ceramics were like at the lowest part of society. Actually, in Athens, the place where the pottery was made was called the Keramikos, and it was a part of town that was known for people who made ceramics and for prostitutes. So if you were looking for a prostitute, you went to the Keramikos, right? So again, these people were not held in the highest esteem. They were kind of at the lower end of society. But of course, nowadays we look at these items differently and put them in museums and gawk at them. Although the ancient Greeks probably would have laughed at us. It's like it's like putting a Doritos bag in the museum. Like, what's this here for? But such is the difference between the ancient world and the modern world. So we were looking at ancient periods of ancient Greece here. I was just trying to give you an overview of Bronze Age Greece with these two civilizations, the Minoans and the Mycenaeans. I said that they both kind of existed in the Bronze Age here before this Dark Age. You can see they kind of overlap, the Minoans and the Mycenaeans. Mycenaeans on the mainland, Minoans on the island of Crete. And so I showed you some pictures from Crete here of these big palaces, right? Lots of big red columns. This is kind of the reconstructed palace at Knossos, and then an artist's rendition of what it would have looked like. Again, a really, really big structure. Somebody was obviously in charge there, right? Some kind of ruler who was controlling the economy of the society. But we don't really know that much because their writing is undeciphered, right? We still can't read what they were writing. So we don't know what this says. It's not ancient Greek. It's older than that. Yeah, so it's hard to kind of say much about that. We do have lots of frescoes that are left over from the Minoans, paintings on plaster, and people kind of like them because they're very kind of naturalistic. They're very kind of lighthearted and whimsical, right? So there's, these young boys kind of having a little boxing match. There's processions and festivals with bare breasts. Who knows? There's lots of nature scenes, right? So plants and animals, monkeys, dolphins, fish. And there's it seems to be some emphasis on bulls as well, right? So I said this is some sort of insane bull vaulting activity which the Minoans took part in. I don't recommend you do this in real life. You will probably die. But these animals were important in some way, right? Ceremonially or religiously, some sort of significance of the bull, right? And again, later on, the myth of the Minotaur, which is this half bull, half human person who's killed by Theseus here. He's said to inhabit the island of Crete as well. So some kind of memory, I guess, of the Minoans finds its way into ancient Greek mythology. I said the Mycenaeans were on the mainland. They built these large kind of hilltop cities that were heavily fortified with big walls, big stones, very impressive for the time, and also for some of the grave goods that were found there, right? So here we have a golden funerary mask, which would have been put over a dead person lying in their grave. The guy who found this, Heinrich Schliemann, thought he was looking at the face of Agamemnon, who's a character in the Iliad. Highly doubtful, but he kind of hoped that it was. Probably not. But he did find the city, right? He did find the city of Mycenae. He did find the city of Troy, both of which are mentioned in the Iliad and the Odyssey, right? So Heinrich Schliemann did manage to find these cities that were thought to be mythological, but then actually turned out to be real places, right? Yeah, so we have these two kind of civilizations that flourished during the Bronze Age, and then everything kind of disappears, right? People go off into the hills, people stop writing things down, and we don't really know what's happening for, a period of about 400 or 500 years. And then around 700 BC, people start to kind of come back together. They start to live in polis or polises, right? Greek city-states. They develop a new writing system. They start holding Olympic Games, right, where they come together and compete for glory and for honor. And so this sort of 8th century BC is a time of pan-Hellenism, if you will. A time when the Greeks kind of develop an awareness that, hey, yeah, we're all kind of, we're a people, right? We're a culture, right? Even though we live all throughout Greece and all around the Mediterranean, we all live in city-states that are different, and we have different lifestyles and kind of different attitudes towards governing the polis. But despite that, we're all one people, right? We believe in the same gods. We tell the same stories. We have the same kind of values, or many of the same values. And so there's kind of this feeling of, oneness, right? The Greeks are kind of one people. And it's kind of helped along by the Olympic Games, which kind of binds everyone together. There's nothing like an athletic competition to make you feel patriotic, right? During like the Olympics or something. You may not be a patriotic person, but when your team is like playing in the final for, men's hockey or women's hockey or whatever, and you're like, go Canada, right? It's nothing like it. And for the Greeks, kind of the same thing, right? They get charged up about this athletic competition that happens at the foot of Mount Olympus. And similarly, these kind of epic stories, the Iliad and the Odyssey, they've probably been told for centuries before this, but they finally get written down in a form that we can actually read. And they kind of become the story of Greece, if you will. So the Mahabharata from India becomes the story of India. The Iliad and the Odyssey are kind of the story of Greece, right? Lots of, great battles and heroic moments and tragic moments, lots of mythical characters, lots of, values and beliefs and morals are wrapped into this story. And so these stories are kind of a big deal, right? Everybody knows them in ancient Greece. Right, so, yes, we talked about polis or polises, right? Small city-states in ancient Greece. There's hundreds and hundreds of them all around the Aegean. And again, they're all kind of different, right? They're all kind of unique, right? Probably the two most famous ones are Athens and Sparta. I think we've probably both heard of those two. And again, they're both Greek city-states they're not far away from each other, right, geographically speaking, but in terms of lifestyle and values, they are totally different places, right? Living in Athens is just completely different than living in Sparta, right? You will have a totally different lifestyle, different values, just coming from a different city-state, right? But we'll get into that a little bit later. And so these polises or polis, they kind of fall into three categories, okay? So some are, what? Is that out there? Oh, okay. Some are monarchies, so they have a ruler, a king, an archon, a basileus, whatever they're called in the ancient world. And most of the kingdoms or most of the city-states in Macedonia, in the northern part of Greece, most of them are monarchies, okay? There are oligarchies, so we have city-states that are ruled by a small collection of people, sometimes the wealthiest ones, sometimes the best warriors, sometimes they're elected from noble families. Kind of depends on what city-state you're in, but there's a collection of people that rule. So in Sparta, you have an oligarchy. So Sparta has kind of two kings, but they're more kind of military commanders than kings. And then they have a council of ephors, and I think there's 7 or 9 of them or something like that. And they're the ones who are kind of responsible for the big decisions in Sparta. And then, of course, we have democracy, right? And Athens is the city-state that adopts democracy. It gives power to the people. It's a very strange story about how that happens, but we'll try to work that in a little bit later. Now, before we get into that, though, there's a few things that we should probably know. And I want to talk about these things. I want to talk about a hoplite phalanx, which is 2 words that you've probably never heard before. They're 2 very strange words. They're not used in conversation very much. But I do want to know what one of those is. How could a phalanx be seen as a microcosm of a polis? Oh, good grief! What's a microcosm? What does that mean? Like what? More small universe? Well, actually, yeah, that's from the word, right? Micro and cosmic. Yeah. So think of microcosmic. So a smaller version, right? How can the the phalanx be seen as kind of a mini version of the polis, of the city state. Okay, nice one, Victoria. Major gods of the Greeks, who are they and kind of what are they responsible for? And I want to know about cults and oracles, okay, and what their role in ancient Greek society or religion was, okay? So just a few pages for you to read. I'll put some time on the clock. Felicia, what do we need? 20? How about 15? Let's see. Let's see where we are at 15. Are you specifically asking for more because you know I'll do less?
Yes.
That's your strategy? Okay. Let's do 15 minutes and see where we are, okay? So I'll let you start reading and then we'll discuss. Good morning. Okay, good people. Ready, ready, ready? Okay. So, what on earth is this Hoplite Phalanx thing? Okay. Okay, so it's a new way of fighting, and it requires all soldiers in a line to kind of work together, right? So there's a view of, there's a kind of a version of this on a clay pot, right, that we can see in the textbook. Let me just show you a couple things though that might help out. I'll get rid of this. Yeah, so here's some of these hoplites kind of ready to go. So a hoplite is a soldier, right, is a Greek fighter. And as you can see here, they're kind of dressed a little bit differently, right, depending on where you come from. The guy on the the guy on the left is kind of a hoplite. The guy on the right is a Spartan soldier. So how you dress kind of varies, but generally they have a long spear with them. They have a round shield. They have a helmet of some sort. Sometimes they have a short sword with them. So you can see the guy on the right there has a short sword. And sometimes they have shin guards as well, right? And again, these are all kind of paid for by the individual. So usually these hoplites are people with some money, right? Because they have to buy their own armor. And so these hoplites have to buy their own armor. And then when they enter into a phalanx, it's kind of like this, right? So all of these guys kind of line up, shield in the left hand, spear in the right, and you kind of lock your shield in with the guy next to you, right? So what happens is you have an entirely armored kind of front as you advance on the battlefield, and you've got these really long spears sticking out, right? And so here's another, maybe a more artistic version of what we're looking at. So you can imagine trying to push these guys off the battlefield, probably be tough, right? They're pretty well armored. They've got their shields all locked together, so they're going to protect themselves and each other. And then they've got big long spears sticking out the front, right? And so everybody kind of has to work together to push the other guy off the battlefield, right? And if you can push them off, they'll break up. Their phalanx will kind of break up, and then they'll run away, and then you've won. Or you can chase them with your sword and try to hack them to bits as they run away, if you want to do that. But again, kind of a new form of warfare, right? And they mention in the Iliad, there's lots of accounts of, the best warriors facing off in kind of a duel, right? One-on-one, mano a mano kind of thing. But here, this isn't about individual duels. It's about everybody kind of working together to see if you can push the other guys off the battlefield and get them to run away, right? Now, in what way does something like this, in what way is it kind of a microcosm or a mini version of the polis? How are the phalanx and the polis, how are they similar? Right? So the survival of the polis depends on everybody working together, right? All of its citizens. And here also, right? This isn't going to be successful if everyone just does whatever they want, right? This is successful if everyone sticks with the plan, stays in formation, supports the guy beside them, protects the guy beside them, and works together, right? And similarly, policies are successful that way too, if everyone sticks together and works together. What else? Or is that all? Okay. So polises were kind of self-sufficient. They had to kind of rely on themselves to take care of their people. And similarly, the phalanx as well, right? Everyone has to kind of rely on each other, right? There's nobody coming to save these guys except themselves, right? Anything else? Actually, there might be one more thing.
I think because hoplites have to provide their own armor, this citizen effectively consists of hoplite owners.
Yeah. So it was kind of landowners and people with some money that had power, right? Because the only way you could kind of participate in the governance of your polis was if you served in the military, right? Serving in the military, you willing to stand up and put your life on the line for your city-state, that's what gives you the right to participate in running it, right? But of course, in order to be able to do this, you need some cash, right? These things are shields and helmets and swords. They're not cheap. And so you need some amount of money to be able to arm yourself. And if you can arm yourself, that allows you to participate in the governance of the polis, right? So you kind of need money to do both things, right? You need money to arm yourself, to fight in the army, and then that fighting in the army is what allows you to participate in the governance of the city-state. So, yeah, they're kind of connected, right? Again, like many civilizations in the ancient world, there's kind of no such thing as a standing army, right? The US has the US military, right? And they are professional soldiers whose job it is to be soldiers, and that's all they do. But the ancient world, for the most part, doesn't really have that, right? The soldiers are the regular people, the farmers, the merchants, the craftspeople, and when their city or their town is threatened, everybody who can picks up a sword and defends it, right? There's no professional army really, and so yeah, participating in this kind of thing is what allows you to be a governing member of the city-state. Let's talk about Greek gods. Who do we have? Zeus? Okay, so what's Zeus's deal? What's he the god of? He's kind of the king of the gods and the god of kind of like thunder, right? I think. Okay, who's next? Hera? Okay, who's Hera? His wife, right? And she's kind of the god of, yeah, childbirth, the home, right? The hearth, women, the domestic sphere, right? The area at home. That's kind of Hera, right? She also has to put up with Zeus cheating on her all the time. It's exhausting. Okay, so we've got Zeus, we've got Hera, Poseidon. So who's Poseidon? God of the sea, right? Probably looks like Jason Momoa. So that's how I think of him anyway. Who else do we have? Who? Hermes? Hermes. Who's Hermes? Yeah, he's the messenger god, right? So he's often shown with a helmet with wings on it, or he's got boots with wings on it. He's the messenger Hermes. Who else is there? Athena. Who's Athena? So she's a goddess of war and no, she's also goddess of something else. Yeah, wisdom and war, two things that sometimes don't go together, but interestingly, she's wisdom and war, what? And woman's, let's see, where is she? Oh, that's true, right? So Athena, like weaving cloth and things like that. Athena's that's her thing too. Who else? Ares, right? God of war. Who else? Dionysus. Yeah, The god of wine, the god of partying, the god of doing crazy things and waking up the next morning and like, oh God, what did I do? That's Dionysus right there. Who else? Oh, right, we've got Apollo, and he's god of the sun, and his sister Artemis, yes. And she's the moon, yeah. So she's a hunter as well, Artemis is. So we have the god of the sun with Apollo, and we have Artemis, the moon, and also of the hunt. Anyone else? We actually have two more that are missing here, that are normally in this kind of collection of gods. One is Hades, right? He's the god of the underworld. And we also have Hephaestus, he's kind of like a blacksmith craftsperson. So whenever somebody needs, like a sword or something like that, or something, whenever they need something built, it's Hephaestus who's the guy who makes stuff, right? He's kind of a craftsperson, blacksmith kind of guy. He's very handy. He's good with his hands. Okay, and then we move on to, where's my question here? So we've got all those gods, which is good. That means that they are polytheistic, correct? Polytheistic. And then I asked you a question about cults and oracles. So what's a cult? I know nowadays in the modern world we tend to think of cults as a bunch of religious weirdos, right? But that's not exactly the definition we use for the ancient world. It's what? A major god? There are cults that are dedicated to major gods, that's correct. Yeah, they're a group of people that worship a particular god or a particular entity, and often they kind of keep the sort of rituals and prayers and things you have to do. They kind of keep it secret, right? So often these cults are kind of secret. You don't really know what they do unless you kind of join the cult and become one of them. So they kind of have this specialized religious knowledge, right? They know the correct rituals to perform to their particular god. Nobody else knows what these rituals are. And so, if you want to know, you might have to join them, kind of thing. So again, today it's, we kind of think of cults as religious weirdos, obsessed with the end of the world or whatever. In the ancient world, it's just people who are dedicated to a particular god. Okay. What's an oracle? Yeah. The oracle is the person who speaks for a god, right? And so usually, if you remember when we talked about, I think it was Shang Dynasty China, we said that people were going to oracles with those bones, right? Those oracle bones. They were writing questions. And then the oracle threw the bone in the fire, and depending how the bone cracked, they were able to look and give you an answer to your question, right? And here the Greeks have oracles too, right? You go maybe to Delphi to ask the oracle of Apollo. You go there to ask a question of the god, right? And the oracle will respond to you, usually in a very cryptic and poetic fashion that you have to interpret, because they can't just give you a straight answer. It's got to be, what do they mean? Why? Well, I think it's so that it depends. If you don't believe in oracles, and I don't, basically what you're doing is you're ensuring that you're never wrong, right? So if Felicia asks me, if I'm the oracle, and Felicia asks me a question, Felicia. What's that?
I'm asking you a question, right?
Yes.
Anything?
Yep.
Yeah, what do you want to eat?
What do I want to eat? No. Ask me a question about you, not about me. I just speak for the gods.
What should I eat?
What should you eat? The food of the earth shall sustain you. Okay? So, what the heck does that mean? Who knows? Right? Felicia has to figure it out for herself, right? Do I mean like organic food? Do I mean food that grows in the ground? Do I mean food that is just comes from earth? What do I mean? Right? Who knows? Felicia has to figure it out. And then, if Felicia eats the wrong thing, and she tries to say, well, the oracle gave me the wrong answer, the oracle's like, well, no, you must have misinterpreted the answer. The gods didn't mean that. Right? So that way, the oracle can never be wrong. Because if the oracle is right, if you do the right thing, then the oracle was right. If you do the wrong thing, you must have misinterpreted the words of the oracle. Neat trick, right? But yeah, that's often how these oracles work, right? They speak for the gods. They often give their answer in a very kind of cryptic way where you have to interpret what the answer is. But yeah, it seems like the Greeks found them very helpful and very important, right? And again, that oracle at Delphi was a very popular one. There was lots of buildings and structures, and lots of people came to Delphi once a year to ask the oracle their questions, right? To ask the big important questions, not what should I eat, but, will my son ever find a wife or something like that? The important stuff. Okie dokie, you want to take a little break?
Yes.
Okay, me too. Let's take a little break and then we'll come back. All right, people, and we are back. Now we've kind of got about 20 minutes left. I don't know that there's enough time to get into the thing that I wanted to get into next. I think what I'd like to give you is some time to work on your presentations, and I won't give you any more stuff to do today. Say what?
My partner is not here.
Your well, that's okay. You can
I think the call is.
do some work on your own, right? Then you can tell him to go off and do some work on his own. I think that's what I'll do, okay? So the rest of the time, spend some time with your project, do some research. Other than that, don't forget that we're going to do our last quiz on Friday. I'm going to upload those lecture keynotes right away. Yeah, and I think that's all. That's all I have to say. So I'll turn you loose to work. I hope everyone has a good weekend at home, and I'll see you Monday, okay? So, great. Bye.